We are back with another episode of the Magic Minds podcast. And today I am elated that we all get to listen to this conversation with David Ludwig. David has been a member of the community that we're a part of for over 2 decades as an educator, as a father, as a neighbor, as a baseball coach, and many other things. He actually teaches at our daughter's school. The 3 of our little ones, they go to Calvary Christian here on the west side of Los Angeles, where David has been an educator for 21 years. Earlier this year, David was diagnosed with ALS. He was already a special member of this community, guiding young and old minds alike. And this experience, he was already special before, but this experience has added new depth, a new dimension to the words that he shares with an 8th grader going through something tough, a friend that wants to touch base with him, or in today's case, with us through this episode. So without further ado, let's get into it with David Ludwig. This is the Magic Minds podcast. Dave.
James.
Welcome to the Magic Minds podcast.
You. Happy to be here.
I've been looking forward to this conversation and feel an immense appreciation that you're down to have a podcast convo with me. The first thing I wanted to ask you is just, how are you feeling today, right now?
Today's been a good week, actually. I feel pretty good. I feel like I've been able to get stuff done around here at work, and things at home have been good, some smooth things. I mean, there's a lot of little things that are hard. Well, there's a lot of things that are hard about living with ALS, but this week has been pretty good overall. I mean, I think I'm doing well. What makes for a good week? Like, what goes through your mind when you say this has been a good week, and then what makes for a tough week? It's a great question. I think the main thing is, like, this thing, as it kind of takes over a little bit, there's a lot of unpredictability and a lot of things that can happen, like mostly like falling down and stuff like that. And, my wife is trying to help me get up and throws at her back and that kind of stuff. Those are hard things, or just a tough night of sleep, anything like that. A good week is like, hey, I had, a good 5-6 hours straight sleep. That was great. We've kind of figured out a new routine in our house to make things kind of move quickly, better and more effectively. And, my kids are doing well this week, that kind of stuff, because I'm still, raising kids. And so that's what makes a good week, really. It's just smoothness. And every day, by the end of the day, I'm usually in the best mood at the end of the day, because I look back and I'm like, okay, another day. It was kind of normal, and it kind of felt like it was good, and I had good interactions. And anytime I'm at school and just around kids and teachers and just this place, I feel pretty good. So I think, mornings can be kind of harder because it's more unpredictable what the day's gonna look like. But when I've had a good day, which is like kind of what I described, I'm like feeling pretty great at night. What can make for a tough week or a tough day? If you'd be open to it, get as specific as you can of like, okay, here was a recent really tough day, and just a peek behind what the experience is like with ALS. Sure. Like, I think it was this past weekend. We have it's called a stair chair. It goes up our stairs to our bedroom, and getting into that is fine, but then like I have to transfer, so I have to stand up and walk a little, and my legs have just been kind of gradually getting weaker, and it's really hard to explain what that looks like, but basically, like, little ways your legs just don't work as well. And so I was going up the chair, got up to transfer over, and hit a wheel on one of the walkers I have, and just went straight down on the ground. And so my wife and my son were the only ones home. My son's 13, so he rallied amazingly well, and they were able to use this thing called a Hoyer lift, which is like what you use to kind of transfer people who can't walk. We actually had one, moved us over, but what came to a realization was probably need to move downstairs into a room that's not even a bedroom because it's just going to be safer for everyone. And that was hard. These like, when we have to move to these next phases of this, it's hard because then you also start going down this road of like, what's going to be the next thing, right? What's coming up next? And you don't know. The disease itself is unpredictable. So I don't know whether I'm going to wake up. It's not so drastic. It's gradual enough, but it's not that gradual. I mean, when you and I hung out last time, I was at least somewhat walking, and I'm not, anymore. Like, it's mostly just those kind of moments where we have to make these big decisions to, okay, now we got to get a caregiver in the home. Now we got to get downstairs, and we have to, eventually we're going to start using only the lift rather than trying to stand me up. And that means, I'm not able to walk at all or stand up. Those are hard.
I'm really inspired by many of our conversations by what you've communicated, even outside of our conversations, and the inspiration within our community that gets back to us as a family of the inner side of things. So I want to talk about the inner side of this experience, but before going there, just logistically, what have been for listeners, could you talk us through those phases, beginning with maybe the first time that you felt, okay, something is a little off? And obviously from the logistical side of things, but also just, if you wouldn't mind weaving in the inner side of like the uncertainty.
Yeah. So it started like, just very minor. I was snowboarding and I noticed my left hand was kind of not tightening well. And I'm like, that's weird. My grip is off, and said something to Victory. And I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Went into the doctor about a week or two later because my hand was like a little bit trembling. And I'm like, this is weird. And she was like, let's go to a neurologist, but you probably just fell snowboarding and tweaked something in your shoulder, your arm. And that's kind of what the neurologist thought. And, the first appointment I ever had with him, he was like, yeah, don't worry. This is not ALS. This is not anything extreme. I'm like, okay, great. He's like, let's get you some OT, PT, and it'll start coming back. And then, so that was in February of 2023. So I just kind of assumed it was going to get better, and it just progressively got worse, but it was only my left arm. And then about September, so like 6 months later, I started to notice a little weakness in my left leg, a little weakness in my right hand, but again, not that big a deal. And I was rolling normal life pretty much, other than I had to do everything with one hand. So I was doing everything with my right hand, but I could walk, I could drive, we went to Italy. It was all awesome and great. But then about December, they thought I had a different autoimmune neurological disease called MMN, which is even rarer than ALS, but it was treatable. So I was like, okay, great. I have a treatable situation. I'll deal with that. And we started doing treatments, didn't work. So then in January, by that point, I was still walking fine, but my left leg was weaker, my right hand was slightly weaker, and then I was diagnosed on January 12th of actually having ALS and not what they thought. So up until that point, I was like really frustrated and anxious and very much like, what's going on, and kind of angry, kind of discouraged, kind of bitter. Like, this is just this is not okay. I have a great life, great job, great family. But once I got diagnosed with this terrible disease, I had this crazy wave of total peace.
Wow.
And just kind of like, all right, this is hard, and I got to tell my family and my friends. But I felt very much like I can do this now, one day at a time. And that's kind of how I live now. I live every day as a day. I don't look that far ahead anymore. And I feel like there's more joy in it because of that.
Really?
Yeah.
So more joy in kind of having a diagnosis that is less ideal, but
weird.
At least
I know.
Tell me more about that, because that sounds so counterintuitive.
I know. And it doesn't make sense because I'm not the kind of guy that by nature just kind of like rolls with things when they come to myself. Like I get frustrated when I have, little things go wrong. I stub my toe, I'm mad, or I, certain things don't work out the way I want them to at work, or, I don't normally just roll with something of this nature and I'm like, I'm good, this is fine. But I am a positive person, but honestly, I have very strong faith, and that has really, I believe that this life is not about the 80 plus years, or maybe it's only 50 years for me that I live here. It's really about eternity. It's about, I have this great future and inheritance in my mind, in my heart, and I believe that very much in every part of me. So I have zero fear of death. I don't worry about dying. I'm not afraid to die. I have a lot of peace about that. The only things that I really get sad about is I have a great family. I love my family. I love my kids. And I get sad at thinking that they won't have me around. But I also know with every part of me that they're going to be okay. I just know it. So I don't know. I think I just was like somewhere something triggered in my mind and heart, like I'm just going to live every day well. Like I tell Victory all the time, I'm like, I'm not going to spend a single moment just being down and angry. Like that's a waste. I want to live every day well. I want to soak up my time with my family, with my friends, with the kids here. Like I just want to enjoy it as much as I possibly can. And so that's kind of, I'm convicted of that and convinced I can do it.
The beauty of our conversation over dinner a few weeks ago, and why I wanted to have you on the podcast, was just I'd never heard a podcast with a guest going through ALS, going through about as severe as, from the outside looking in, about as severe as an experience as someone could go through. At least know it. People are going through severe experiences, and maybe they just, they might have substance abuse problems that's incredibly severe, but not know the gravity of the severity. And you have a sober mind to have that awareness of, okay, this has a lot of gravity to it from a certain perspective. But then you have a lot of levity to it when you say exactly what you just said, of there was a wave of peace.
Yes.
And I imagine for a listener that might not have much faith, this question might sound strange, but I have a feeling you'll know what I mean by it. Is there a part of you that feels like, okay, this is what's happening here, but we're not meant for here?
Yes, a big part of me. I think the biggest thing is that I know that like my physical body is failing, but that's not me. There's much more. I have a soul, I have a spirit, I have an essence, whatever you want to call it. I have that, and that's me, and that's thriving in a lot of ways. But my physical body is failing. But if I put all of my stock in that, then it's dire and terrible and horrible, but I don't. I believe that this is a moment in time, a vapor, if you will, that, and honestly, James, all of us are going to die. Mm-hmm. Like not one of us is escaping. It's 100% mortality rate.
Honestly, even as I was asking the question, I was like, oh, we're all in a situation of supreme gravity. Yeah. We just delude ourselves like the addict. Maybe we just say like, no, we aren't. But you're totally right.
Everything shifts when you're facing the reality of a likely death. Like you're like, okay, every one of us is going to die. We just don't know when. I've been given a gift to know that it's not going to be as long as I thought it would be. I'm closer to it than I anticipated. And yes, it's not going to be pretty and all that. I get that, but I now have the opportunity to focus on what is most important in my life fully. And we don't realize how much we focus on things that don't matter at all.
Tell me more.
All the time. Well, I mean, think about, you have 3 kids, right? You worry about all kinds of things that are totally out of your control just because you're a normal parent like me. Who are their friends going to be? What are their friends going to do? What's going to happen if in kindergarten they're getting one kid's mean to them? Is that going to make them in therapy in 25 years? Like things that are almost always not worth worrying about. Like not really worried about those things, not really worried about, my kids getting like perfect grades, or if my son goes 0 for 4 in a baseball game or whatever it is. Like, no, life is, those are small things now to me. What's bigger is the connection you can have with people based on like really facing something that's gnarly and intense, and really being able to share like a connection to people that's beyond just like, having fun, having beers and enjoying life, which is great. And I do plenty of that too. Like I'm hanging out with people as much as I can. I love people. I have great friends. And honestly, you'd be blown away about how people step up into your life and just are there for you in these situations. And, that's been unbelievable. Like, so, and then you couple that all with the fact that I've been a teacher for 21 years and I've taught hundreds of kids and I've poured my heart and soul into this place. And so those kids have come back, and those kids are 32, 33, and they're just like showering me with love and friendship and memories from things I said and did 20 years ago. And it's been unbelievable. It's been like crazy gratifying. And dude, I never would have gotten that if I didn't go through this. I never would have, because nobody does, because they never know, right? You never know when someone's...
I think about my favorite teachers, professors, once a week, once every month, and I haven't chatted with them in 20 years.
Yeah.
And so they don't get to hear that. And this is going to be a nice inspiration for me to make sure that I figure out how to get in touch with them.
Telling people how they've impacted you. Anyone in your life that's made any impact on you, taking the opportunity to do that, it means so much to the person who's hearing it. Also means a lot to the person who's giving it. I mean, those kinds of things have been sweet blessings, like really awesome moments for me that I just cherish. And I mean, I still get like letters in the mail, emails, Facebook messages, Instagram direct, from people from a long time ago. It's pretty cool.
Something that we've chatted about before is when I was 15, I lost a sister, and how death was the greatest teacher. I would have never expected, never signed up for a class with.
Right.
And yet there's probably nothing that anyone could have ever said to me that I could have ever signed up for that would have had that amount of growth built right within it. And that amount of shift in perspective to everything I've done for the last, I guess it's been 23 years, has been with 10%, 20% extra appreciation for each day, because at 15, life got rocked of like, all right, this is not a given. Do you feel like this is in any way that there is not just a silver lining, but there is something, and I'm kind of leading the witness because we've chatted about this before, but do you feel like there's not even a silver lining to the cloud, but almost a built-in beauty of the dynamic of something like this with your children or friends?
Yeah.
Does that cross your mind?
Yeah, it definitely does. Obviously, if I could have it my way, I would not have this. I would say, okay, I'm done. I'm out. I want to be healthy again. I want to be able to walk and run and breathe properly and all those things. So it's not that I want this, but I do think, and what I've seen and felt is that there's opportunity for depth and intimacy with friends, family that would never have existed without this. So I also feel like I'm getting to experience kind of like the beauty of humanity, if you will, the beauty of our like humanness in this moment in time, because it just kind of like pulls down all the walls and all the pretenses, right? It's like I'm able to be like, people follow my lead, right? So if people see that I'm enjoying life and having a good time, they have permission to laugh with me again. They have permission to joke with me, to make even jokes about me, which I love. It's okay. But it's like they have to have the permission in their minds, because they're also sad and they're also wrestling. And so I think definitely for my kids, I think I've had a great life, and I've been very invested in my family. And I think that I don't have any regrets at all about how I've poured into my family, because they're the most important people in my life. And we have all 4 of my kids I have great relationships with. I think that I know that they're going to be sad. It's going to be hard, but there's going to be something that they will understand and learn and grow out of this that I think will be very beautiful for them in their lives. And I really want to give that to them. Like this idea of like, every day is not a given, right? So appreciate the day you're in, appreciate moments. I've always been convicted about appreciating experiences that you're in the moment, when you're sitting with some friends and it's just good and it just feels good, and you're around a campfire and everyone's on the same page. Appreciating moments like that, but also appreciating moments when, it's a mundane day, but it's a good day. It's an enjoyable day. Watched our kid play sport or perform in a show tonight, right? So I think giving that to them, to not worry so much about so many things that we all worry about, I do think will be a nice little like silver lining, if you will.
I would love for you to get as specific as you feel comfortable. What goes through the mind during the course of a day, like today? Even the parts that you're like, okay, this wouldn't come up in cocktail conversation, but these are the things that go through my mind.
I mean, a lot of it is just like overcoming little things like in moments. So like when you think about raising kids, you think about there's eras of your kid, right? So potty training, right? When you finally get your kid to go to the bathroom, you're like, okay, I accomplished that. What's next? Sleeping through the night, whatever it is. With this, it's like, okay, what's the first thing I have to do? I have to get up, but I can't get up, so I need my wife to help me get up. I have to hopefully go to the bathroom, because going to the bathroom is a circus. So I really want to get that clean out of the way. Mm-hmm. And then, the smoothness of eating in the morning, getting ready. And then once I'm like through those things, I feel this like rush of like, yes, I did that thing. And now I can move to the next thing. And once, like even when I got this chair, which is like a bigger chair, like getting this means once I'm in this chair, I'm actually kind of feeling comfortable, because I've been in a lot of pain. So comfort has been nice when I get to that point.
Is the pain from aches and pains, or is it from ALS related pains?
ALS does not cause pain, but it does, atrophy your muscles and your body to the point where you're putting strain in new areas. So like my shoulders get strained, or my feet get swollen, or I have like, those kinds of things go on. So
okay, so you get in the chair and you're more comfortable.
Yeah, more comfortable. I get to that point, and I as the day goes on, I just I have moments of like positive things, like especially coming to work. So big thing was me coming to work. I didn't want to not be at work if I can, because this is where it happens, right? I'm at a school, it's alive. The kids have rolled with, it's amazing. Like every kid in the school is so awesome and kind about this. They say hi to me when I cruise around the halls, and they're into it. And my middle schoolers, I still deal with them, with their poor decision making at times and those kinds of things. My teachers talking about things like when I have like a morning where we're talking about what's going on and we're making decisions and accomplishing things and solving problems, like those are like, I appreciate those moments. I do think about all the things I need to think about. I think about it less now that I'm in this chair. When I was not in the chair, when I was walking, I was like, how am I going to get up? Who's going to help me get up? Like, where's my cane when I had a cane? Like things like that I think about less, because now I'm more in this chair. So it's good and bad, I guess, in that way. But just looking for little moments of accomplishing things and being happy that I got through those things. Getting home, being able to put my feet up in this chair and hang out with my kids and watch a show or have dinner. All those things, like those I get like joy out of very simple things that we never would have, right? Little things. But I do think what I have to do next, I do have that on my head a lot. Yeah.
You mentioned getting joy out of little things. Are there little things that, and this is total just projection from my part, so I'm curious, are there little things that you notice that give a sense of pain or sadness that 10 people on the street wouldn't even notice?
Yeah, there's, sleeping's okay, but like the fact that I can't move, like I can't turn over in bed, like I can't do stuff like that. Like there's something about being able to like plop on a couch, and that bummed me out. I can't do that kind of stuff. Like plop down, sit down, like lie down on the floor, work out, do push-ups, sit-ups, those kinds of things. Kind of like, you know, being able to throw a baseball, things that I get, they are like, those are painful to me. Those are like, it's a bummer to me. Like the things that I can't do get to me at times. Like I'm not sitting here like whistling and having the best time ever. I get frustrated by that. I'm frustrated by the fact that I can't talk as loud. I can't project my voice anymore. Like stuff like that. It's just different, but I mean, I try not to focus on those things too much too, you know? And they're moments, right? So like I can't move my leg in bed. I'm getting kind of antsy. You can imagine that, right? You're just like, I can't move. And then, you know, victory helps me move it. All right, I'm comfortable now. I'm okay. Let's next thing, right?
When it comes to the experience of this, and I like how you said, I'm not my body. I'm so much more than just my body. I imagine the language around something like this, and your inner language matters so much. But the conventional language is something like, oh, David, you have ALS, or someone has X, Y, or Z. Is there a bit of a shift that goes on just in that mindset of, no, my body has ALS?
Yeah. We've been working on this a lot, actually, talking about the difference between
who's we?
Victory and me, my wife and I, just like talking about, hey, when she is weary and frustrated and sad and discouraged, that is not me causing that. That is the ALS causing that. And so I have been really adamant about my physical body is not me. It is part of me, I know that, and I wish it worked well, but it doesn't. So therefore, I still have my brain. I still have my ability to speak right now, but I still have my ability to reason and connect and relate and all those things that make me who I am, right? Encourage, all those things. So I think it has been an important thing to separate, and it has not been that easy, but we're really moving it. You know, therapies help with that, right? Hey, separate these two things, right? Your disease and yourself, right? And so that has definitely been an important part of this.
Yeah, there's that phrase in the last few years that people have been mentioning of, we're not our diagnoses, whether it's
right.
Cancer, anxiety, depression, or ALS. It seems so inhibiting to identify so fully with a diagnosis. Faith or no faith, this isn't even like philosophical or spiritual nature, but it just of the experience feels like it's a completely different experience if there's a wholehearted identification with the diagnosis and like, this is me, versus what you casually mentioned earlier in the conversation of, this is happening to my body.
Yes.
But not me.
Yes. That has been a really important part of all this. And I think anyone who's going through anything like this, it's really not natural to separate those two things, because we think, you know, we just kind of think of ourselves as kind of whole, like we are who we are. And so, but when something like this happens that's out of your control, or that is a disease, right? Something like that, then you have to shift your mindset into like, I'm more than this, you know? And regardless of your faith background, like, you know, it's hard to believe that it's just this. It's just like the human soul is so much grander and deeper than that. And so obviously your body can break down, but you know, my mind, my heart, they're the same.
I'd love to ask what you'd say to a few different audiences.
Okay.
Starting with What would you love to say to, let's say, the community here? If they don't have a chance to speak with you directly or hear it from you directly, what would you want to say to the community here at Calvary, where our daughters go to school, where your children went to school?
Yes.
Or this part of LA in which we live in? What would you want to say to the community?
Like on a personal level, I would say, this has been one of the greatest blessings of my life, has been an educator at the school. And I have been blown away by the kindness and the connection and the care of the people in this community, across everyone. Everyone I've encountered has been, beautiful in how they've loved on me and my family through all of this and provided extra support for us and all those things that we've needed through this time. I would also say at the same time, like having been an educator in the west side of LA, we care about the wrong things a lot. And
Tell me more.
Yeah, we can be so focused on what we think people think of us, right? And that goes to a lot of different directions. And the irony of that is what every middle schooler goes through. 20 years of middle school, every middle schooler, when they walk into a classroom, their thoughts are not, hey, I can't wait to learn today. It's, what does she think of me? What did he mean by that? What are they looking at right now? We have uniforms, but they might be like, my clothes, do people think my clothes look good today? Or my hair? That guy commented on my shoes, and they're thinking about everybody else, what they think of them. But what nobody talks about is our adults are like that. They're thinking that too. When I talk to that guy, does he respect my business? Does he respect the way I go about things? My kids want to go to this place, or hey, they have a place in Montana, or they have a place in Whistler. And I just think, like, invest your time and your energy in the people you love. Like, invest it in them, not financially, but in actual, real heart connection with the people you love, like, as much as possible. Like, one of the things we did 2 summers in a row, we did road trips across the country with our kids. We piled in a Suburban, 4 kids, my wife and I, and drove all the way across the country. One year we went like 5,500 miles. One year we went like 7,800 miles. And you're in the car, you're driving 10 hours, 8 hours a day. There's fighting, there's complaining, there's whining. There's moments where I almost sent my oldest home, and yet there's memories and there's connection moments and there's time together. And like, do that. I got no problem with your kids going away to camp for a few weeks and all that kind of stuff, but find time where you're not just saying, hey, we're going to take you down to this like incredible resort and you're going to hang out at the pool all day, and we're going to go, at the, local
spa, right?
Cantina and spa, right? Like, do things that, one of our family's biggest traditions was Yosemite camping, getting out in RV at first and then a tent, but it's just memories together where we're just doing it together. Mm-hmm. And so that reason, I'm, almost 50 and I have a terminal illness, but yet I have no regrets because I poured in crazy time into my family.
Next audience would be to yourself, either today, what you'd tell yourself, or to yourself 20 years ago at 30.
Oh gosh. I just think what I would say to myself is, I would say, like, continue growing and becoming a better version of yourself, but also you're doing a great job. I think I've put my energy into the right things, and I do believe that God has directed my path to where I am today. So I can't, I was not the kid that people would have anticipated for leadership positions when I was 12 years old, right? But yet somehow in my life, I ended up in this school, in this place where I have truly poured so much of my heart and soul into. So when people say, you were a great teacher, I know that it wasn't just me, like, I don't know, just kind of putting up a show, right?
Or half-assed.
No, exactly. I cared about all these kids. I know every kid I taught. Every kid I taught, I remember. If I see them, I'm excited to see them. Like, it's the beauty of a small school in some ways. I didn't have 400 kids a year. I had 40. But I have deep, rich memories of all of them, and I really did care. And so that's why when it comes back around and I'm getting all these crazy messages about how I did great things with them, I'm like, it's so gratifying because I cared. I put my, when you put your energy into something and then it comes back and it's positive, like it's not just, oh, I got lucky. It's like, no, I really wanted to do well at that. And man, it feels so good that I did well at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get what we deserve, not what we desire kind of thing. And when you put your all into it, that's the fun side of getting what you deserve. It's
it
like,
is
wow,
the fun side.
This is
right.
This is working. What about to middle schoolers right now? What would you tell to I know nothing about middle schoolers. I told you when I walked in this room, I hadn't seen a middle school classroom in 25 years. What would you say to middle schoolers in 2024?
I would say like develop real relationships with people that aren't based on whether the person is cool or is popular or is good looking or has money or is good at sports, but develop relationships with people who you honestly feel like you and care about you and want to be your friend. And like you can trust them and they're safe for you, and you can build your understanding, build your arsenal of tools for how to be a great friend in middle school. Middle school and high school is when you learn how to be a great friend. And it's also when you learn how to find a great friend, how to know what a great friend looks like. And so every kid is gonna go through crappy friends. Mm-hmm. They're gonna go through people that let them down, make bad choices, hurt their feelings, but every kid's also at times going to be that friend.
Right?
Yeah. So they're also that. So everything is learning. I love coaching. So it's like development of people. It's like everything is training and building and growing. There's no bad kids. There are no bad kids. I stand by that. There are bad decisions.
20 years of teaching. That's hell of an authority making that statement.
I have a lot of parents who would say, oh, that's a bad kid. No bad kids. Bad situations, sure, bad decisions. Sure, there are kids who struggle with things that are dark and there's anger and they do terrible things at times, but a kid can always be saved and a kid can always be directed and a kid just needs to be loved and cared for. So to a middle schooler, I'm saying find the people in your life that build you up. Find the people in your life that give you, air in your lungs and wind in your wings and all those analogies. Find those people and don't worry about whether or not they're the coolest or the greatest or the whatever you want to say, right? Find the people that add to your life, not take away.
Right. People that give you energy.
Yes.
That's, that was so tough in middle school because you'd find yourself in high school, college, and business. Nearly all of life. You can find yourself entranced by someone that is not encouraging, doesn't give you energy. And yet they have some transactional value. Maybe it's like, but they could help me get this, or they could help me with this or that, instead of something that's as simple and beautiful as what you're saying of finding people that add to your life.
Yes.
And consciously choose the encouragers versus the people that are not that. They might not be full-on discouragers, but the ones that are not encouragers.
No, they're takers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say to your children?
To my kids, I would say some of the same things because they're in this age range, and I have said these things to them. But I would just say, like, live your life thinking about things beyond just like what we worry about every day. Like, live your life in a way that takes advantage of the moments and the people in it to enjoy the people in it. And like, pour yourself into loving people well. Pour yourself into like helping people. Pour yourself into embracing fun moments and have a sense of humor. Like, laugh a lot. Laughter's been the greatest thing for me. Like, laugh a lot, enjoy. Don't take yourself too seriously. Like, and then I would say, honestly, and you'll probably feel this too for your girls, love each other. Like, almost like love each other most. Like, eventually get married, of course, your spouse and your own children, but have a relationship with your siblings that you have this incredible support of someone who's always going to have your back. Even if they bark at you and they piss you off and all that. And then also, I of course would say, take care of your mom, love your mom, look for ways to encourage her, look for ways to help her, and remember that she shoulders a lot of the stuff that we all take for granted. Like, she shoulders so much of it. So live in that way. So that's some of what I would say.
Mm-hmm. I feel like their love for you all just, and it's that case with every child, will just endlessly grow, especially as they become parents and they realize, oh my goodness, this is what they were this is what they were doing behind the scenes when they made it seem so seamless and easy.
Yeah, and I would also say, like, my physical body will die, just like yours will, right? But I will always be your dad, and I'll always be your husband to my wife, and I'll always be, in some ways, available, even if I'm not physically available. I'm always going to be in your life, and in some ways, in more powerful ways than maybe I would if I was physically alive. Mm-hmm. And I would also, and will also say that to them.
For any listeners that are going through something that brushes with death, I always think about this quote from Stephen Colbert. Lost, I think it was his father and two of his brothers in a plane accident, and it was this random interview that I was reading, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, and he was talking about that part of his life, and he said it was the most beautiful experience he would have never designed. Does that phrase resonate with you at all with this current predicament?
I think so, yeah, I do. I do think in some weird way it does. I can call the experience beautiful in some ways, while also saying I would love to not have this experience, right? So yes, I can. I think when it's all said and done, I will probably resonate with that, and I see that because there have been amazing things that have come out of this already.
By the way, you got every right to reject that too and be like, yeah, exactly. Actually, no, that's not my experience. And anyone that's going through a brush with death, I know with, the time right after my sister passed away, that would not have been my articulation. That would have been the last articulation I would have had. But fast forwarding months and then years, and now a couple decades, I think about that quote from him because I've never heard it said. Better. The last two questions I have for you, David. First is to round out the audience questions. What would you say to Victory if you get the chance to just unendingly talk right now and she has to listen?
Yeah, I would just say, obviously, I'm naturally of an encourager and I verbalize a lot of things, but I would say, it's been the most amazing. I have the most amazing marriage. I love every bit of it. She's the person I want to be with all the time still, and we're together a lot right now. Right? She's pretty much at my side all the time, and I think she'd say somewhat of the same thing. Although I'm getting heavy, I am heavy to lift, but I would say, for me, I told her when we first started dating, I'm like, I feel like, I kind of won the lottery here. Like, I don't know how you slipped through the cracks and I ended up with you. And I still feel that way, 100% feel that way. And now more than ever, I feel that way because I see a level of love and commitment and care that is just so perfect. And so honestly, like God in some ways, like feels very unconditional and very sacrificial. And so I would just say, like, look, if our time is not going to be as long as we wanted it to be, but it's been unbelievably awesome. And, our anniversary is this weekend, 23 amazing. Years. Congrats. And so it's been 23 amazing years. And obviously this last year has been by far the hardest, but just that I am definitely more in love with her now than ever and more enjoy her now than ever. And I just want her to be able to see and feel what a beautiful thing she's doing and how honoring it is of her character, of her relationship with God, and then also of our marriage.
Beautiful. Okay, I lied. There are a few more questions.
Right, I'm good. I'm rolling.
To really round out that audience set of questions, if you could put anything on a billboard for the world to see, what comes to mind?
I would say, my motto has been get busy living, based on Shawshank Redemption. Like, you gotta just start get busy living. So I would say get busy living and live your life, like live. Almost just one word, just live. Because like, to me, we spend way too much time being bogged down by things that don't really matter. And, I would also say one thing I thought about was, what would I say to people who are dealing with a terminal illness?
Please.
Like I am, right? And the biggest thing I would say is don't be in denial. Like, people hear me sometimes and they must think, oh, Dave's in denial. He's too happy or too... I'm not. It's not that I'm happy. I'm super unhappy with this diagnosis. I'm super unhappy with all the things that come with it. But I am full of joy, and I am full of a real understanding of, hey, I've got, again, legacy matters to me, and I have a thing to leave behind now. I don't want to be, if I want to tell anyone who's going through this, live your life and be open with people with the reality that, yes, you might die. Like, you might, it's not like you're going to sit here and go like, ALS is a little easier because you can't really like beat ALS like you can beat cancer. Like, ALS doesn't have a cure, but I've known too many people who fight to the end, but never really address the reality of, what do I want to leave behind to the people who love me? Like, what are the words? What are the things that I need them to hear me say before I go? That I need them to know I feel before. And I've been thinking a lot about that. And I think that is really important and really hard, because if you do, it is a small way, a weird gift of ALS, that because there's no cure, it's like, well, I'm not going to beat it. So I've got to, do my best to, I'll do whatever I can. I'm listening to all kinds of ideas and thoughts and things I can do to make it better. But I'm going to make sure, because I don't believe this life is all about just my time on earth, that I'm going to leave behind everything I need to for my kids and my wife. And they need everything they need to hear me say, as much as I can think in advance, right? Maybe ChatGPT will help with that, I will do. And I really believe that if you're dealing with an illness, a terminal illness, you need to wrap your mind around the importance of that.
Yeah, they say don't live in denial. But as you're talking, it's interesting to hear very real reasons to not live in denial. You don't say what needs to be said. You don't think what needs to be thought. You don't think to say what should be said. And our culture has we've chatted about this before, that our culture has such an immature relationship with death.
Yes.
Where we never want to see it, talk about it, think about it, and yet it's the certainty that every one of us will go through. There are very few things that we can say every one of us will experience, but that happens to be one of them. And 200 years ago, I think it was 1 out of every 3 children before the age of 5 would pass away. It was extremely, maybe it was 300 years ago. It was extremely, like communities were dealing with death. You'd have, you wouldn't have old folks' homes to ship off parents. You would experience it. 100 years ago, when the majority of, I think the majority of the U.S. in 1900 was in agriculture. You're dealing with death constantly now.
Right.
We never see it. It's 10,000 miles away when we're at the grocery store buying anything.
Right.
We just don't develop a relationship with it. It's sad because it then becomes this thing that we don't think about, that we push off to the side.
Right.
And we don't think will happen to us.
I could spend every day researching and working on anything that might give me some kind of like rabbit trail towards a possible couple extra months of life or whatever it is with ALS. Like, I could make it my full-time job to just try to find every clinical trial and every, holistic remedy and every hyperbaric chamber and every doctor who's discovered this. And at the end of the day, I'm not going to do that, because I want to live my life. I want to be with people. I want to live with people. Now, if something comes along that's legit, I'll go there for sure. I want to be made well, but I feel like people so often fixate on not dying that they don't live. They're just worried about not dying. And that's not how I'm going to do it.
Maybe we've touched on these things, but as the last question, what's something you think a lot about, but you rarely get a chance to talk about? And it could be as an educator, could be as a father, could be as someone experiencing ALS, but what's something that you spend that holds a significant amount of mind share, but rarely comes up in conversation with anyone?
I talk a lot, so that's hard to say, but
yeah, take your time to think
I would
about it.
say I think a lot about what is going to be like for my family when I'm not around. Like, I do spend a lot of time thinking about, like, how can I record enough videos or, leave enough notes or whatever it is, and what would it be like for my family to, maybe move on, my wife getting remarried someday. Those things are just thoughts I have a lot, like things, it's just, there's so many things, like, a lot of us have a will that we create, and all of us, when we create our will, we're not usually sick. We just do it. Who's going to have my kids if we die? But you don't really think about it. It's like, oh, of course I would do this, that, and that. Of course I would want you to remarry. Of course I would want, my kids to go to these people, whatever. But when you're actually facing it, you're like, oh man, I don't want anyone to raise my kids but me. I don't want anyone to marry my wife but me. Like, I don't want that, So those kind of things can really occupy your head when you're in, but it also brings me back to, I'm focusing on my physical body, being here physically, and I don't have a concept of, hey, there's more for my family to have after me, and it doesn't take away what they have with me.
Well, thank you for sharing just everything that you've shared openly.
My pleasure.
I can say, from someone that is 2 feet from you and experiencing someone that is experiencing ALS, and in direct ways, our communities, this is the first time for a 6-year-old to experience it, a 14-year-old.
It's true.
And I would say you're at such a lighthouse, not just in the wisdom and insight you share in a conversation like this, but like I said, driving by, just seeing, or like you mentioned, driving by and seeing the joy that you're moving through life with, moving through this experience with. It is a lighthouse in untold ways, especially around this relationship with the D word, death, which is inevitable for every one of us. And it is something that no one would ever design in this community, but an invaluable thing that you've approached this with such an amazing attitude, insight. I mean, the peace, I don't even know what the words are for it, but the way that you approached it, it is, I feel like it will have impacts for generations, because I know it's impacting our family. Our family, we're talking about ALS with a 6 and a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
And we're talking about life, real life, like capital L life that you're talking about with a 6 and a 3-year-old that we wouldn't be talking about otherwise. They wouldn't be able to map that conversation to the joy that they see on your face each day.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're hearing this from so many people in the community, but you are so loved. And I've spent maybe a total of an hour and a half with you, but loved not just from one person to another, loved from a role that you uniquely can be, that it's almost like you've been deputized with a role, and speaking from someone with faith, deputized by God for a role that you probably would have never signed up for, but man, are you performing it epically.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, I do feel like, if I have moments of why me, which I really haven't, but I do think, well, I know God has had a purpose in my life, and it's to bless people and to care for people, especially kids. And so part of me is like, okay, this is part of that calling now. And, not, getting into does God make you sick or not? I'm not going down that. I'm just saying God is using this. I feel like an amazing, compelling to use it. And it's authentic. It's really authentic, James. I'm not like putting on a show. I'm not, hey, I've got to look good and I'm really dejected at home. And you heard it. That night you came over, you asked my kids, and my daughter said it. She's like, I'm doing okay because my dad is. And that's true. And she sees the raw, right? So I do think that's something is crazy, weird, divine about how I'm able to like feel this measure of peace about something that totally sucks.
Well, I think part of that our immature relationship with death is that we feel like, oh, I won't be okay.
Right.
And yet that's why it can be so powerful to see your example. And your daughter, I think, posted on Instagram that my wife came across and thought it was so beautiful, and she shared it with me. And her post, I believe it was Sophia. Sophia that said it. Soph said something along the lines of, "You wouldn't think about we're doing okay."
Yeah, I know.
It's emotional. Just
it's amazing
thinking about. It's not emotional from a loss perspective. It's an emotional response from the beauty of a grown daughter being able, the strength to be able to be this close to what we spend our entire lives trying to avoid, to be this close and to have that strength to be okay. It is, I mean, you're inspiring, you're deputizing all of these people around you to be these lighthouses. There is something so beautiful and cosmic about the paradoxical nature of just like, this is what we try to structure our lives to avoid, and yet there's so much realness and beauty when we do get right up close to it.
Well, honestly, I mean, one of the early on, even before I was officially diagnosed, I was talking to a therapist, and he was like, you know, you're actually teaching your kids now. You're teaching people about how to live with whatever you're dealing with. And so I've taken that to like, it's the greatest job of my life was a teacher. I love being an administrator and running a middle school, but being a teacher is like the most joy I've ever had in terms of a profession. Being in front of a group of kids, and what you want to do is you want to give what you know and what you've learned and what you're passionate about. You want to give that to the kids, and you want to instill that passion in them. It may not be specifically about, for me, English and history, but it's about life, and it's about pursuing things you love and being encouraged in that. If you're really into something that other people aren't that into, but if you're passionate, like, let's go. And the thing to me, it's like, now I have an opportunity to continue to teach that, hey, life is not just about your physical body. It's not about where you can go on vacation. It's not about whether you live 80 years or 50 years. Life is the opportunity to engage with people and to love people and have real relationship with other people and with your creator. And that's really what relationship has been so important to me for that reason, because I am now reaping the benefits of having poured my heart and soul into wanting kids to take from me the kind of zest and passion and desire I have to live well. And that's kind of, you know, what I get to still do. And I do it now. And I have a lot, you know, now people can really say, okay, if that guy can live well, what excuse do I have?
It's, you know, I tried to climb this rope on, if you know the Santa Monica Beach, the ropes that are, I don't know, 20 feet up. And I tried to climb it with my wife and one of my brothers, and couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. 15 minutes later, the three little girls are playing, and I'm not thinking about it. And then I see someone climb it. And I'm like, man, that guy kind of looks like me. It didn't require, you know, Mr. Olympian to climb this thing. So I was like, maybe I can do it. I walked back over and climb it. And it's, you know, that old phrase of like, sometimes you got to see it to be it. Seeing someone being who we want to be, that can face the thing that we think we can't face it with such grace.
Good.
It is encouraging principle that I think 99.9% of us do need to see.
Definitely.
I don't want to take any more of your time because time's precious, but this has been so insightful. Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you. It's been great.
And wisdom, Dave.
No, my pleasure. This has been awesome. It's really good.
Well, I've loved it. And if there's a part of us that is eternal, then 50 years, 80 years is nothing in comparison to that.
That's what I believe. Yeah.
And that's straight up math. 80 divided by infinity is straight up zero. It is nothing. It's not like it's a small portion of the eternity. It is like you said, vapor.
Nice.
It is nothing compared to eternity.
Nice.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, James. Awesome.